When I booked this trip, I had one objective in mind. But that's the beautiful thing about travel. It unravels you from what you know and all of your comforts. It's an escapable moment to reflect on how and why we live the way we do. Despite having made this trip before, many years ago, and having traveled to many other countries since then, booking this trip somehow felt like a tremendous feat. The planning and the commitment to going on this trip was pulling me away from the life I had been tethered to. The comfort I found in partnership, in love, and in building a family. This trip really jolted me to remember who I was and what parts of her I wanted to hold on to. It also led to a lot of introspection around building a creative life when life changes in the ways you want it to, and building healthy friendship that can carry you through those moments of excitement, frustration, and fear. So after 8 hours and almost 4,000 miles, a plane, and 2 trains, I finally made it to these two.
Nein, sollen wir dich tragen? Okay.
My cousin and her son live on the beautiful countryside of West Germany, and I was so excited to be part of the world, even if just for a few days. She and I try to stay connected over FaceTime and Instagram, but with her being 6 hours ahead, it's not always the easiest to connect. We both work 9 to 5. She's navigating being a new mom and nap time. I building a home with my partner, our 2 dogs. And so with whatever little time we have left for ourselves, it doesn't leave a lot of space often for us to really do those long talks and check-ins. When I finally reached her by train, we hung out in the area for a bit, got some ice cream and walked around. One of my biggest fears in meeting her son, who's 2, for the first time, was him not wanting anything to do with me, not sure if he would like me, but it didn't take long for him to make a request for me to be the one to pick him up and carry him, so I think we're locked in. When we finally arrived to the house, did a little bit of playtime with him before it was time for him to go off to bed. She then made dinner, which was this really simple but tasty dish of sauteed vegetables, a little bit of feta cheese on top. And it was just a lovely dinner, and we talked and just sat with each other in ways that just aren't possible with us living in these different time zones. And it was already so nice to witness my cousin as a mother and see the life she was building for her son, the routine she had created for him to be able to learn and just enjoy his life, and the way she was creating space for herself as she was just navigating motherhood and this new stage in her life.
Yeah, always been like that, but since I really have to share the time I have with him, with Maurizio, I just want to be present and enjoy
So the next day, after eating this lovely breakfast my cousin prepared for me, we packed up and we made our way over to the lake. Was super excited to have beautiful weather. It had been raining almost the whole week before I got there, and so got there right on time for us to enjoy the sun as well as being in the water, which I learned my little cousin, her son, truly loves, true Cancer baby. And so was looking forward to also seeing him in his element. My cousin and I didn't grow up together, with her living in Germany and me in the US. And we also met when we were probably preteens. Can tell that story at another time. But all that to say, I'm just super grateful that we are at least close in age, despite the distance making it challenging to be in each other's lives in the way we probably like. At least we are navigating a lot of similar life changes, transitions, challenges, fears, pretty much at the same time. And it's really nice to be able to build that bond, not just as family, but, you know, as friends even. Passa!
Ein Pavillon. Möchtest du laufen? Wasser. Ja, möchtest du ins Wasser laufen? Ja. Dann machen wir dich runterlassen? Nein. Okay. Ja.
Hat über 30 Zentimeter lange Flügel.
This was maybe one of the most wholesome days of my entire life.
Komm, wir gehen zum Wasser, Schatz. Komm.
Life is just made just a little bit easier not being in the US sometimes. And this day was really reflective of that. We could go off into the water without question or fear around our things going missing or being stolen. We had our purses, our bags, all on the blankets as we made our way to the water, and I just knew not to even question it. My cousin wasn't exhibiting any kind of fear, and so I just rode with it and understood in that moment that culturally that was just a big difference from being in the US or being in New York even. This was also the moment when I realized everyone was just free in their bodies. No one was concerned about how anyone looked in their bathing suit, and that was just very much so evident in the ways that folks were just comfortable in whatever they were wearing, or when the time came, you know, the young ones would just strip down and be eating lunch with their parents. And I just loved that kind of, you know, freedom of fear, I think, and just realizing how much living in the US has conditioned us to be scared of each other. There's a lot of fear mongering, and so there's always this threat, imaginary or real, that we're always preparing for or looking out for, and there just wasn't that. The next morning, we continued with their traditional morning ritual of going on a walk in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Raven soll schieben? Ja,
The
toll.
little hand next to mine is gonna get me every time. Their neighborhood includes a farm, so it means that their walks involve seeing rabbits and chickens, goats and cows. And I just loved knowing that this child was growing up with such an understanding and relationship to nature and the animals. It was so cute. Wow, this is so cool. They're so beautiful. Oh, they just walk and pee. Okay.
Oh, guck mal, Baby. Oh, das ist cutie.
I was learning a lot from my cousin in a very short amount of time about what motherhood could look like, what it could possibly look like for me, what sacrifices need to be made to really shape a life with a child. Something that's important to me as I think about having children in the future is them not being an addition to my life, but integrated into my life. And what I mean by that is, I know that it'll be really important for me that I feel really present with my children, and I felt that presence from my cousin. At no point was she ever just sitting and scrolling on her phone or watching TV while her son did something else. She had really built a life that was in alignment with the stage of development that he's currently in. And really being intentional about his learning, his growth, whether that was through playtime or the conversations that she was having with him. It really forced me to feel the reality of what that looks like. Well, let me speak for myself. I don't think I spend a lot of time on my phone or with technology, but also it's almost impossible not to. I work from home and I'm on my laptop. I'm on my phone interacting with friends, or it's also a large part of my creative practice to interact with technology. And so it was really humbling to see just how much my cousin has really disciplined herself to build a life that really centers the care of her child. I also relate a lot to living in a much slower paced area. And so there is that lack of convenience when it comes to finding that hole in the wall bar or going to that event and finding like-minded people, or even just making friends. Despite some of the losses and inconveniences, I still don't know that I would change anything. There's such a power in my choice and how and who I choose to pour into, and even greater clarity in how I want to be poured into. I've definitely experienced moments of loneliness, wishing that the friends that I do have were closer and could just drop by, or the ability to take public transportation and get to places much more quickly. But I also remember being a lot of relationships that made me feel extremely lonely. Convenient friendships were just that. They worked when things were easy. And sometimes they distract us from the relationships that may take a little bit more work, but will be worth it. This ended up being a really full day, and I had one more full day left, and so wanted to get some laundry done. So this is me out on my cousin's patio, hanging some clothes to dry. I didn't mean to look like a German milkmaid while I was doing it, but when in Rome. For my last day, my cousin wanted to give me the full German experience, so she took me to this beer garden, which was not anything that I could have imagined. We entered through this area where people could zip line through the woods and across the lake. Everything centered around the lake, so we took a beautiful walk, saw some other restaurants, cafes along the path as we made our way towards our destination, which was this beer garden. But first, we swing. And this whole thing begged the question of, why don't we have this in America? It was such an easy and simple way to just create a fun place to gather around things that already exist, especially when we're talking about just being in nature. And so the zip lining through the woods, the trails around the lake, and then having this really beautiful open air restaurant / beer garden. At no point did it feel like we were at an amusement park. It just felt really relaxing. Everybody could essentially choose their own adventure, which was perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Prost. I'm excited what you're about to say.
She's familiar. She's very weedy. So after a very relaxing time at this beer garden, it was unfortunately my last night with my cousin, but it was a beautiful way to end. From here, I was off to Amsterdam for some true solo adventures by myself.